and it'll run perfect. Other times you can't, so depends. Wind-wise. Voice a little low today, so we'll just have to deal with it as we can. Are there any questions you would like to pose as the beginning of the meeting?
Content over everything! Is it right to break the law to aid the poor?
I mean, it's almost like a rhetorical question for me. As you're familiar, I was in a legal case myself recently. And I was talking about that this morning, actually. One of the walking tour group I take around, Karl Marx, a walking tour. I was talking about that this morning. We're standing in front of a big building, £40 million in price. What actually allows the owner of that building to control the building? One is, they have a key. To cut the key to that door, maybe £3. So £40 million is technically protected by £3. Now, then legislatively, they can say, there are regulations that say, I am the person who has the right to this property, not you. And they can go to court, as they did with me, and say, we have the right to this property, not you. And we have the right because the contract you sign says you have the right only to this, and I am the superior and have the superior right. So basically in Britain, we have a situation where property law trumps rights law. So if property and rights clash, in general, 99% of the time, you could say, property law will win. And most law in Britain is property law. And in fact, the whole structure of society is geared around the idea that private property is sacrosanct, that the interests of the owners of private property are primary, and that corporations, a limited company, the guy's extremely annoying, a limited company, there are 6 million limited companies in Britain. Most people employed in Britain work for limited companies or for public sector entities. And limited companies are treated in law in Britain as if they were a human being, as if they have the same rights of recognition as a human being. But more importantly, the word of a limited company is treated normally in the courts. That's how the law states. You must assume that the statements of a company, not of a human being, but of a company, are true. You must assume that what they say is true. And you have a high benchmark of evidential responsibility to show that a company is not telling the truth. Now, that says it all. Because the question you ask is property. And is the law designed to defend property as opposed to the poor, the weak, the powerless? That is self-evident from the way the system operates. The legal system, the police system, the prison system, they're all geared to defend the interests of property owners. And ultimately, the more wealthy you are, the more power you have in relation to the law. Because, for example, if you want to hire a solicitor, £150 an hour. You want to hire a barrister, £300 an hour. To get a solicitor to write a letter defending your legal issues, for example, trying to protect your rights as a tenant, one letter you're talking about £300 or £400. And to get legal aid now is extremely difficult. And therefore the legal system, there's a guy called the Secret Barrister. He wrote a book recently about the legal system in Britain collapsing. And it's true. It is collapsing around our ears. Because without legal aid, without legal support for the poor, how do you possibly defend your rights? Now, there was a Greek king in ancient times, and he used the phrase, law is like a spider's web. The weak get caught in it, and the powerful sweep it away. And that is the truth about the legal system in Britain. Now, some people are asking me, why so many police at Speaker's Corner now?
Yes. Why?
Why the sudden heavy police presence? And the truth of the matter is, as I explained last week, there is an international plan by the far right to use Speaker's Corner as a sounding board, a testing ground, to provoke reactions against them and then claim that they're attacked for free speech. So in other words, you come to Speaker's Corner, you make provocative statements designed to antagonize Muslims or minority communities, and they don't mind which one, they'll jump between one and the other. And you can see these people hanging around over there, some of them coming to Speaker's Corner, they got videos trained on them, which is the present world we live in. Some of the videos at Speaker's Corner now are getting 50, 100, 200 or 300,000 views in a week. The consequence of that is Speaker's Corner is no longer a closed environment of a small number of people who happen to be here. It is hundreds of thousands of people around the world watching the arguments, debates, discussions and conflicts breaking out here. I met with the senior police officer trying to contain what happens in Hyde Park this week. We had a meeting in the old police station in Hyde Park, and they are concerned about this involvement of the far right and also about a possible reaction by certain layers within the extreme sections in the Islamic community, provoked and provoking the far right against the Islamic fundamentalists. Now, there have always been far right people here. There have always been Marxists like myself, anarchists of one sort or another. There have always been, for many, many decades, there have been Muslims at Speaker's Corner as well. I consider the variety to be the essence of Hyde Park. It is what makes this place alive. And to be honest with you, over 32 years of speaking at Hyde Park, I can tell you this, the community at Hyde Park has always played a positive role in preventing violence from escalating out of control. So I am still confident, despite the orchestrated campaign by the far right to try and infiltrate Hyde Park and turn it into an area of conflict.
Yeah.
I'm quite confident. If you watch some of the videos which did turn violent, you'll see that when the violence broke out, large numbers of observers get involved, hold some people back, get between people, and they say, come on, calm down, cool it down, take it easy. That is the general atmosphere which has developed over decades, yea, over 150 years of us coming to Hyde Park, debating in Hyde Park, arguing in Hyde Park, and dealing with the issues on a person-to-person level, and as groups of people, wishing to hear arguments, debate and discussion, rather than to engage in violent conflict. But I tell you this, the police officer, he said to me he'd like to try and control things in one way or another. They have administrative solutions to these questions. I do not believe there is an administrative solution. And in fact, those of you who know me will know I've been speaking here since 1986. I began using the internet in 1993. And when I began using the internet, I was a big advocate and supporter of developing the internet, which I saw at that time as, if you like, the embryo of a speaker's corner throughout the world. Now that has come to reality. We now live in a world where what I say here may be being watched in the far corners of India, or in Argentina, or in Vladivostok, or in Beijing, or in Nigeria, as we talk. And therefore, and people go on there, you look at the discussions, when someone's talking in Hyde Park, on YouTube or in Facebook or whatever, people are going there, yes man, no man, yes man, no, right, wrong. There's a participation discussion on a global level. And the distinction with Hyde Park, which is why what I said back in 1994, 95, when discussing the internet and Speaker's Corner, is now becoming reality. That is, I was at this meeting the other day, and some of the people in the meeting, they said, comments on the meetings in Speaker's Corner are saying, wow, this is interesting. It's more interesting than Eastenders. Now, I've never been a big fan of Eastenders, but the essence of the question is true. And that is, as distinct from Love Island, or from Britain's Got Talent, or from one of these Made in Chelsea,
The Apprentice.
huh?
The Apprentice.
Or The Apprentice, where you're supposed to believe, oh, anyone can join in. If only I get selected, I'll become famous. Right? But now it's like Andy Warhol once said, everybody gets their 15 minutes of fame. And where will that happen? It won't be on Love Island, nor will it be on The Apprentice. It will be here in Hyde Park. Because here, the video we're recording now, and those recording now and being broadcast and watched by hundreds of thousands of people every week now, those videos draw in people to Hyde Park. I get the phone calls because I'm the official calling point for Speaker's Corner. I got a phone call last week, an Afghan. He says, I want to come down to Hyde Park. I don't believe in Allah. I was born a Muslim. I want to speak against that. I said, well, you come down. Well, I said, I don't have to ask me. Go down and speak. He goes, I want to wear a mask. I said, it's better to not wear a mask. Put some dark glasses on, mate, if you're worried about it. The fact of the matter is, though, is that now if someone wants to get hundreds of thousands of people watching what they're saying or listening to what they're saying, all they have to do is wander into that crowd over there, start shouting in the middle of it, and they'll be known by hundreds of thousands of people. Therefore, the internet has caught up with Speaker's Corner. That is the phenomenon we're witnessing today. And there is not an administrative solution to this. So the police officers who watch this tomorrow and the day after, which is what they're doing now, the police are now watching the videos each week from Speaker's Corner to find out what's happening and to try and... The truth of the matter is, we will need more space for Speaker's Corner. Because, of course, what will happen is it won't only be speakers or people with opinions. It'll also be people who want to get known. You know, and there's a lot of people out there doing that, isn't there? You know, people flash their tits to get known. My tits aren't all that good to look at, but never mind. That might even work as well. People do all sorts of things to get known nowadays. And that is what will happen. Speaker's Corner is about to become a magnet for everybody who wants to get known anywhere in the world and have their 20 minutes of fame or 15 minutes of fame. I think that is a good thing. Because it will, on the one side, encourage large numbers of people to come. On the other side, people will have to think, how do I address these people? How do I speak to them? How do I convince them? How do I get my opinions across? And it's one thing to stand in a corner and 3 people to shout in each other's faces. It makes good telly. But ultimately, people want to hear depth, consistency, ideas. You know, so people like, you know, when people started using the internet, first it was like look up ideas. Then it got consolidated in the hands of a few companies. Then it became anyone can say what they like on Facebook or Instagram or something like that. So then people posting little things. Then people got closed into their own communities. So me, I've got 5,000 friends on Facebook. Friends. Okay, 4,361. I've lost a load of friends on Facebook recently. But then you're closed in your own circle. I see people posting on Facebook. Friends of mine will post on Facebook, they'll say, now anybody making a racist comment on here, or anybody saying anything anti-homosexual, or anybody saying in favour of Brexit, I'm going to block them. And so they get closed off in their own segregated community. And they speak to themselves and their mates. And they alienate themselves from the rest of the people who don't share their opinions. The advantage about Hyde Park is that from a Marxist platform in this corner, you can walk over there and there's a bloke advocating anti-colonial black rights, some sort of argument like that. Some other guy over there saying there's flat earth. Some other person over there defending gay rights. Someone defending the Shia, the Sunni. Someone defending Unga Olumba Wumba Woo.
And the macho.
And we've got this man.
Anti-white working class.
There you go.
Yes.
Here's
The
the man.
white
Here's the
working
man who
class
caused
have had
Brexit.
to leave London. They go to places like
And here,
Perth
by
in
the way,
Essex.
a short pause
Right.
here. Come forward, Jan.
They go to places in Essex.
This man here.
And then the
Hang on.
council housing goes to
1 minute. This gentleman here, I would like to point out, is a very good friend of mine. He's been coming here to Speaker's Corner since the 1950s, just after the Second World War. It was his 90th birthday last week. When he was 16 years of age, he was shot through the neck by the Nazis. He was put in a prisoner war camp, and he believes in social change and social justice. I'd like to give Jan here a quick happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jan. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you very much.
So what have you ever done for the white working class in your entire years? All they've had to do, the white working class, they've had to leave where they were born, the part of London they're born. They've had to leave and go to Essex. I met some last week.
Are you in Essex?
I'm near Epping Forest.
Oh, it's
Right?
very nice.
But they go to Purfleet and then they say, we expected to bring our family up to get a council house. Now the overspill of refugees is coming from London. We
council
will
house.
never get a council house,
Right.
ever.
And that's
They're
because
building
of
council-
me, is it?
They're building council accommodation and foreigners that come straight in the country are getting it. You've done nothing
The
for
gentleman
white
here
working
is
class.
reflecting.
My family have had to become middle class and get 2 degrees. If you don't have 2 degrees, you've had it in this country. You've got to get 2 or 3 degrees.
There is a certain argument that this gentleman here is reflecting because
The true situation, and you're not.
it's your opinion.
It's not my opinion.
Right,
I go
sorry,
on
this
the
man
street.
here is telling the truth.
I go on the street and I talk to complete strangers
So that
about
make-
what's going on.
Okay.
And I don't go to
I
any...
correct myself,
Yes.
fool that I am. The gentleman here is speaking the truth as he sees
No,
it.
I'm on the path to the truth. It's not the whole truth. It's
Oh, right,
half
okay,
the
well,
truth.
thank
But
God for that.
You are a Trotskyite. You say that you have always been a Trotskyite. Now you've joined the Labour Party.
I wasn't
You
born a
think-
Trotskyite.
You think you can take the Labour Party over, but the Zionists in the Labour Party are not going to have Corbyn. They're not going to allow
Are you done
Corbyn.
now?
And I said
Are
that
you done
yesterday.
now?
I'm never done. Right? I've had my own meeting and I'm 2 hours on the
Now,
internet.
it is
Look
true.
it up.
Firstly, about these people gathering in small groups, they're shouting at each other. It is a general rule which we used to always, as speakers, say to the people who are arguing like that. You turn around to them, and the way to deal with them is to say, get up on a platform, mate. Give your point of view then.
Yeah.
Because once you stand on a platform, it's a completely different dynamic you're
isn't.
engaged in.
I've been 2 hours being recorded.
Yes,
it's
it
the
is.
Same. It's the same. It's the same for me, right?
For you.
It's the same for me. It
For
might
you.
not be for you.
Your
For me,
subjective
I say
truth.
exactly the same
Right.
on a platform
Okay.
or there. So,
Okay. Okay. It's the
Well, why
same.
don't
It's
you
the
start?
same speech you might make, but not the same experience you have.
It's more or less the same. Getting the truth.
More or less, it's
when
not the
you
same.
get the truth over to people,
Right, okay.
it's the same experience.
Okay.
If you're a
Are
liar.
you trying to take over this meeting?
No, I wouldn't want to take your
Thank you.
meeting
Good.
over. It's not
I'm
worth
glad to
taking
hear.
over.
I'm glad.
Most of them.
Just questioning. That's just asking. That's all. Now, the gentleman here reflects a certain viewpoint within society, which is quite widespread. People turning around and saying, "There are foreigner got council flat, my child didn't. Therefore, foreigner stealing jobs in Britain, stealing houses in
Yes,
Britain."
yes, I can prove
Hang
it.
on. I am arguing your point of view.
No, you're not.
In order,
You're not. You're oversimplifying it. I
That's
can
what
give
you
you
said.
exact information what actually went on in East London at the beginning of immigration. The beginning of immigration.
When was the beginning of immigration?
The
then?
mass immigration, 1960s.
Is that the first time anybody
That was the
immigrated to
fir-
Britain, is it?
When I went to school in East London in Manor Park, there was not one black person in the school. Right? As soon as I left the school, those roads in Manor Park, every road in
All
Manor
right,
Park
come
had
on.
one house
This is
with
pure
12 single Pakistanis in, and each had to have a job, and each brought their family over. And within one generation, that whole area became Pakistani. And that's what's happened, and that's the truth, and that's objective.
And
What
that's a
point-
bad thing, is it?
Yes, it's a bad thing.
Why?
Because
Why?
because that East London was built by the indigenous population, and the work should be.
Actually, most of the construction work
was Irish.
in London was Irish.
Was Irish.
Not indigenous
not
English.
Pakistani.
Irish,
Not
though.
I count Irish as British.
Well, when my father's Chinese, right? So I'm one of the bloody foreigners,
my
right?
son's Chinese. Doesn't make any difference. Right,
It's
it
the
applies.
Pakistanis you don't want, is
now,
it?
It applies. The principle, you do not allow a country to have a massive immigration, to have more births eventually than the indigenous
Let me ask you
population.
this.
China won't
Let me
allow
ask
it.
you
Yeah.
this.
Because people,
Yeah.
he's gone on about immigration.
I've got it. Solution. Let me ask you this. That's the phrase. Got it. Now, let me ask you this.
Worrying about
Yes.
immigration and you do research into your own family.
Did the British, I mean, I've been to Pakistan.
Great-grandfather came from,
And when I went to Pakistan, I've been twice.
could be anyone.
When I went to Pakistan, I went to a hotel. You know what it looked like? You know what they had for breakfast? English breakfast tea, Lipton.
That should be Irish
They had
breakfast.
porridge,
The fucking
porridge,
English stole it from the Irish.
porridge.
There's no such thing
They
as
had
an
toast
English
and
breakfast.
egg with soldiers. They didn't have bacon. Actually, they had beef bacon. Then I went to the mountain, Moray, lovely place, like Switzerland. I went to the mountain. English colonial buildings everywhere you go. Long before the Pakistanis came to England,
Yes.
the English went to Pakistan.
So,
Not only did they go to Pakistan, they went to India.
so that is a good reason
Hang
to
on.
have a white
May I ask you a
replacement
question?
policy.
Did it again. Did it again.
No, he's twisting it.
India was occupied by the British.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
wanted the
a
fucking
British
Irish
ruling
as well.
elite.
It was robbed,
Helping the British.
plundered,
They were in the British Army.
divided by the British.
So the British working class have got a suffer now because of what happened then. have
The
they?
British then granted, in 1948, when they were short of labour,
Yes.
they granted 600 million people the right to come to Britain.
They are the traitors, the British ruling elite were traitors. They were traitors.
Well, they are German.
They were traitors. They were traitors.
Well,
they were traitors.
Who?
The British
The royal
ruling
family?
elite. Yes.
Those Germans?
Yes. Don't be racist. Got nothing to do with it.
I'm half German, no problem for me.
No
problem for me. If you would- Sorry?
I'm half German as well. Welcome to the club.
Yeah, but what about the other half?
What's that got? It hasn't got anything to do with it. I'm a third Western European.
What are you
so
talking about then, my friend? You're talking like a numbskull. Turn round here, 1 minute he turns around and he says, the white this, the white that, the white. Then he goes, oh, but not my son who's Chinese, not my fat background who's Irish. So he ends up diluting his genetic pool, and therefore he's got no right to knock on the door and say, you out, I in. Because in reality,
I apply the same thing, but I go to Hong Kong. I advocate on the street in Hong Kong to the umbrella movement people. Hong Kong should stay Cantonese. Keep out the British NGOs. You know I've been saying that years ago.
I know what you've been saying.
I've
never understood it.
Hong Kong should be Cantonese with a special relationship with China. It should not allow the whole world to go in a corrupt.
The fact of the matter is, again, this sort of deluded idea. He goes to Hong Kong, talks to protesters in Hong Kong, imagining they should listen to him because he's British, and the British ruled Hong Kong for 150 years after forcing the Chinese to take opium through two wars, the opium wars in the 30s and the 50s.
My family in Hong Kong,
So,
and most
therefore,
of them are Chinese, and they've lived in that
yes,
part of
fine.
the world for
The point
hundreds of
being,
years.
however, the point
And I
being,
know what I'm
however,
talking about.
your
I
knowledge,
know what I'm talking
your
about.
knowledge and your expression of that knowledge in relation to the position of the white working class seems to be a little confused
Well,
when
I
you
know what's happening to the white
examine
working class.
the world conditions out of which the present conditions emerged. Why do we have large numbers of migrants from all around the world?
Like you in the
because
Labour Party won't do anything
because
to stop
Britain
it.
had a
Because
global
of traitors
empire
like you, who are communists
integrating.
that joined the Labour Party. He's a communist, he's in the Labour
Are you
Party.
leaving? Are you leaving? Are you leaving?
And then you start complaining about them being here.
No, fine. Thank you.
No, because
Hang on. No, don't encourage. I said, are you leaving? He said, yes. We should welcome that.
I tell the truth. He's a communist that's joined the Labour Party, like tens of thousands of communists. They
Well,
support
in
China
actual fact,
equality.
in actual fact, thank you very much.
Are you a
Thank
communist?
you very much.
Are you a communist?
I said, thank you very much.
Are you a communist?
I'm not a communist.
Yes, you are. You've been a communist.
Why do you ask me? Why do you ask me if you know all the answers?
Years.
You know all the answers. Why do you ask?
Just be honest and say you're a communist.
Now, I'm going to say what I think. I don't need you to tell me what I think.
I know you're a communist. Everybody in the
Well, why don't you let me say what I think rather than what you think
He's a
I
communist,
think?
isn't he? Come on, you tell me.
I'm going to answer you. I'm going to answer you
Why do you
in
ask
an
me?
honest and
You
accurate
know you've been in
fashion,
the park
rather than in a rhetorical fashion, as you'd like. I am a Marxist.
Yes, that's the same as
I joined the Labour Party when I. I joined the Labour Party.
Even that's fucking legal. isn't
I
it?
joined the Labour Party when I was 17 years of age. I'm 54 years of age now. So I've been in the Labour Party on and off since I was 17 years of age, 1980. Now, I joined the Labour Party because I wanted to see change in society towards a socialist society. What do I mean by socialism? By socialism I mean public ownership of the commanding heights of the economy, the banks, the big industries, the decisive levers of economic power. They should be in public hands. And then we should plan the economy, driven by these central power in the economy. We should plan the economy to meet the needs of the people and to satisfy the wants of the people. So their wants should be first: healthcare, education, welfare, higher living standards, shorter working week. Last month, the head of the TUC said we should have a 4-day working week by the end of the century. No, I don't agree with that. We should have a 4-day working week, a 6-hour working day, a 4-day working week now. And we should by the end of the century, we should have a 1-hour working week or a 2-hour working week. because the technology is there, the science is there to provide for everybody with nanotechnology, with biotechnology. Did you know you could feed the entire world from the stem cell, from the feathers of one chicken, without killing any more chickens in the history of the world? You could just take the stem cell from the feather of a chicken, turn it into meat, grow it as culture, and serve it. You have to mash it up a little bit to create a certain tension. They already produce this. They already produce it. By next Christmas, it will be on the shops, in the shops. Beef, chicken, and so on. Made without any animal. Or better said, merely with the stem cells.
That's not fun.
They have technology now.
I want to torture
Nanotechnology, which can be sent into the body, in the bloodstream, to attack cancer before it develops. We can have cure, we can grow human eyes, the same as your present eye, in a pig. And that eye can be grafted onto a human being when the eye degenerates. All the organs of the human body can be grown and can replace the existing organs. And therefore we live on the cusp of a scientific and technical revolution which can lay the foundation for democratic control and a society of peace, freedom and plenty in harmony with the ecology, where the needs of the people are met by the scientific and technical developments of the past, and the labour of the present will merely be the mental labour that you engage in every day when thinking and acting. Just the same, the embryo of that is clear already. Because if you look when you use your mobile phone, what do you think? How do you think Facebook makes their money? How do you think Google makes its money? Every time you pick up your phone and you enter something into it, what you enter belongs to them. And so all the interconnections between you and the activity you engage in on your phone, your computer, your iPad, all of that is the property of the other. They harvest your unpaid labour power and use it against you. But it has created companies whereby the principle which Marx proposed, from each according to their ability to each according to their needs, exists now. What used to be, it used to be necessary for you to go to a cinema to see a film. Now you just press a button and down it comes. It used to be necessary for you to pick up a phone and make a phone call. Now you make a phone call with an app, paying nothing for an IP to IP connection. Therefore what we're seeing is the emergence where human labour power has got such enormous potential that with one person's action, you can multiply the benefit to hundreds or millions or billions of people. That is how the World Wide Web was. Tim Berners-Lee invented HTML code, which laid the foundation for the World Wide Web. He gave it away for free. And because he gave it away for free, and one person could build on the work of another person, and could go back and amend, adjust and develop, that laid the basis for the integration of the entire planet. The communication systems all of you now have in your pockets.
What about all the people without access to internet in those countries like
My friend,
Pakistan?
when I began to use the internet, I used to prophesy the internet would be in the pockets of most people on earth. And a lot of left-wing people turn around and say, no, the internet's only the bourgeoisie. It's only a few people, the middle class in England. Now, everybody in Britain is on the internet. Even my mother's on the internet. Hi, Mum. Even my dad's on the internet. Hi, Dad. Everybody's on the internet. So, in India and Pakistan, I assure you, I've been in Pakistan. Everybody's on the internet in Pakistan. Everybody. I've been in India. In India, nearly everybody is on the internet. In China, there's more people on the internet than America and Europe put together. And that's supposed to be a dictatorship where there's no free information. More internet users at a more sophisticated level than in any other part of the world. They now use the internet now for everything. If you want to buy breakfast, like a bun for breakfast in Beijing, everybody pulls out their mobile phone They go up to the guy, he's got a little market stall. He's making buns all day. How do they pay? They go like this, bleep. That's how the ordinary people buy from the street seller in Beijing.
They are
So
more
therefore,
advanced.
the last shall be first and the first shall be last. What's happened is, what Marx, Engels, Lenin and Trotsky explained, is there is a process of called uneven. One part develops rapidly, another part less developed. So in Britain developed rapidly, India went backwards. But there is also combined development. So there's uneven processes around the world economically. But then when a poor country wants to adopt a new technology or a new method of organization or a new method of thinking or a new medicine, a new field of science, a new field of culture, they look the whole world and they take from the most advanced in the whole world. And therefore, there is also combined development. That means that people, like when the settlers from Europe arrived in the United States of America or in America, they conquered America. They shot the North American Indians, the indigenous people. But it didn't take 2,000 years of technical development for the North American Indians, the natives, to drop the bow and arrow and pick up the gun. It took only a matter of 10 or 15 years for the gun to be adopted as the standard weapon of the North American Indians. In Vietnam, when the Americans went to Vietnam and bombed the Vietnamese, they dropped Agent Orange on them. They shot them, they killed them. Initially, the Vietnamese fought them with bamboo and spears. But afterwards, they developed their own technology and they responded to the Americans and they captured the weapons from the Americans and turned them against them. And so, combined development is the automatic corollary of uneven development. And therefore, what we're seeing in the world today is this process. Some countries, like America, the richest country in the world, should be the most advanced, psychologically, technically, culturally. But you've got President Trump. You'd be hard pushed to search the whole world, even the poorest countries on earth, and find a more stupid president. I mean, stupid in the way he behaves, in the arguments he makes, the way he goes on Twitter and talks nonsense, in incoherent gibberish. And yet, America voted him in. On the other side, a backward country, economically backward I mean, might well elect someone who's tremendously progressive. And therefore we have the integration of the world, the intercommunication in the world, which means that the most advanced ideas and the most backward ideas are confronting each other on a daily basis. And we see that here in Hyde Park. We have some of the most stupid reactionaries, like Tommy Robinson and his fan base, this idiot by the name of Prophet Tan, coming down to Speaker's Corner, proclaiming he's got some prophecy, and all he does is attack the Muslims, shout out nigger and things like this and think, oh, I'm doing great because I can provoke people. On the other side, you have some people advocate Islamic fundamentalism, Sharia law for everybody. And of course, Tommy Robinson will stand there and say, look, these people are going to take over Britain. Last week I looked on the YouTube video of this, and then someone goes on there and says, don't this commie realise Sharia law comes to Britain, then he'll be the first one to have his head cut off. Well, the truth of the matter is, Sharia law is not coming to Britain. It's not going to conquer Britain. Absolute and stupid nonsense. And yet these people, they will come down here, the right-wing reactionaries, and they'll say, you listen to what they say. They come round Speaker's Corner, and you hear one time after another the same words repeated. Muslim grooming gangs, you're defending Muslim grooming gangs. Then you ask them, what do you mean Muslim grooming? 90% Muslim grooming gangs. In fact, the study that Tommy Robinson cites and that all his goons repeat, 90%, was published by one organisation. The year before another study was done. They found the opposite. Grooming gangs were predominantly white. Now, there are certain communities which have certain problems, yes. But let's say the Catholic Church. I watched the programme about the Boston Globe. Anybody see that on the internet, on the BBC? The investigation into the Catholic Church. Grooming gangs in the Catholic Church. Much bigger than the Rochdale gangs that we're talking about. And so they selectively choose something to emphasise in order to whip up hatred against the Muslims. That's their objective, because the soundbite sounds good. And because there are stupid people, like the man who was here a few minutes ago, who wants to blame the foreigner for taking the council flat, rather than blaming the government for not building council flats. There have been no council flats built by most councils in Britain for decades. And in fact, there is no homelessness problem in Britain. Not an objective one. Because if you look, every single time you see a homeless person, keep your eyes peeled and look around you. For every homeless person, you'll find 6 or 7 empty buildings.
Yeah.
For every homeless person.
Yes.
When you look around Britain,
Doors in.
look around London, London alone, according to a right-wing Conservative Party think tank called Policy Exchange. Their website is policyexchange.co.uk. On their website, they have a report, and they show that in London alone, there is enough empty commercial property to provide homes, 400,000 new homes in the empty commercial property or in those spaces. 700 football pitches of empty property in London alone. So there is no real objective reason for homelessness. Sorry? Yes, it's corruption. It's because what the gentleman here said. The gentleman here asked me at the beginning about the difference between the law and the interests of the poor, the rights of the poor. The reason why there are so many homeless people is because it helps the estate agents. It helps keep the workers on their toes. Because if the worker in London, earning £30,000 a year in an office, working 9 or 10 hours a day to stay ahead so they don't get sacked, eating their lunch at their computer to show how keen they are. And yet, when they go home, if they want to rent a studio flat anywhere in 1 and 2 zone of central of London, they're going to have to pay £1,500 of their monthly income in rent. That's without council tax. That's without electricity. That's without gas. That's without travel card. That's without 17 pints on a Friday night. And therefore, how can people live? The consequence of that is that the homeless person acts as a whip. Every time you see a homeless person in the corner of your eye, you think, thank God I'm paying my rent. Thank God I've got a job and can pay my rent. Otherwise, I might be like that. The consequence of that is that homeless people, if they're not paid by the estate agents, they might as well be. Because they're the encouragement that drives people to carry on doing the work to pay the landlord. That's why I agree 100% with the argument of Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party that we must cap the rents. We must impose controls on the rents. We must impose taxes on second homes.
Reform the
and we
banking
must
system.
requisition the empty properties and make them used for the people. And in relation to the banking system, I say this. Last week, a scandal was revealed at the Danske Bank. Now, the British are complaining no end about Russians killing people in England. And yet, Russia, the Russian oligarchs as a friend of mine called them, the Russian oligarchs, they're invited here. You come here, £500,000, £1 million, passport, permission to remain, indefinite leave. And yet, the British and the Russians were found to be the main conduits for money, 200 billion criminal money passing through the Danske Bank, based in, I believe it's Estonia. Estonia. I think 14,000 Russian accounts, a lot of them British accounts, based, connected to the Danske Bank.
Danske Bank is a Danish bank.
Yes, a Danish bank.
So what got to do with the British government?
Because it's in Estonia and the British encourage, if you like, the Russians to settle here and put parts of their money inside the Danske Bank in Estonia. And they also have the City of London, 400 banks, a city-state, 1 mile from here, special laws, special regulations, special rules, a special city-state like Singapore, Washington DC and the Vatican. That's what the City of London is. The City of London is not ruled by the elected representatives of the people. The City of London is ruled by 400 banks. Those banks are the main money laundering centres of the entire planet. And Britain is the #1 money laundering facilitator in the entire world. That's why Boris Johnson and Theresa May, they're saying, well, what we'll do is we'll provide services. What do they mean by services? They mean we'll let criminal money from everywhere in the world flood through Britain. And any trouble anywhere in the world, they can put their money in England. That's the game they play at. When the Egyptian ruler, Mubarak, stole 1.4 thousand million people, £1 million from the Egyptian people, when his government was entering crisis, the British had been allies of Mubarak for decades, as they are now allies of Saudi Arabia. They're the ones behind Bin Laden, they're the ones behind IS, they're the ones behind the violence from the Islamic fundamentalists across the world, Saudi Arabia. And yet Britain is in bed with Saudi Arabia.
Indeed.
Their main close ally in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia. And so when they talk about when Mubarak was about to fall, they said we'll seize his assets in Britain. But they didn't give it to the Egyptian people. They kept them in Britain. When we nationalised part of RBS, we nationalised part of Barclays, was it Barclays? Nationalised part of Lloyd's.
Lloyd's, yeah.
Did the policies change? 10 years on from the financial collapse, in which Britain initiated the programme to save the big banks, billions and trillions, by pumping money from you, from your children and your grandchildren. They stole that money from the future to give to the banks to protect the private shareholders. They nationalised the debts of those banks, nationalised them, and then made you pay for those debts. That's why wages in Britain are £700 on average below what they were 10 years ago. £700! We pay for their crisis. That is why the guy turns around, communist conspirators. That's why we won the Labour Party leadership.
100%.
Because people knew,
Corbyn, all the way.
give the chance.
All the way.
It's like Archimedes said
No more blue. Only red.
back in ancient Greek times. He said, give me a fulcrum, give me a lever, give me a place to stand, and I will move the universe. So it was with Corbyn. We had a chance. The old machine was in control. But we had a vote where every person who was a member and everybody who said, I'm a supporter and paid some money, could vote. Once that happened, once democracy was allowed to control who is the leader of the Labour Party, suddenly the tide shifted. I remember being here the day Corbyn stood. I said, Corbyn will stand for him. I remember you saying, what are you talking about? I said, Corbyn will stand behind him and we may win. And in fact, there's a man here who took a bet with me. £20, 20 to 1. I got £400 out of it. One from the betting office, another from him.
That's capitalism.
Capitalism. No, it was a bet. It was a bet about Jeremy Corbyn. That's the sort of capitalism we want. Now. No, it's paid by a betting office. On the private deal. No, I didn't.
Luck and chance, isn't it?
Sorry?
Betting, that's based on luck and chance.
Well, Sometimes it's luck and chance. Sometimes you have insider knowledge. In that particular case, I had insider knowledge. I knew that the mood was shifting in British society. I knew from speaking to Speaker's Corner for decades what anger existed within the population that had no avenue of expression. Once Corbyn stood, that avenue of expression was found. We had the avenue to express ourselves, to organise, to combine, and they have mobilised everything against it. Lies, slanders, the members of Parliament from the right in the Labour Party, the mass media, the television, the newspapers, day in, day out, attack. But you see, people are not so stupid. They think you're all ignorant. They think you've got no opinion. They think your opinion is idiotic. And yet, once you attack someone again and again and again, you know what the general attitude is, even amongst Tory voters? They say, some of them say, I may not agree with Jeremy Corbyn, but what they say about him can't be true. Every time they attack him, it can't be true. He isn't anti-Semitic. I mean, many people, Jewish people who come to me and say, I know it's a lot of bullshit. And yet there's an orchestrated campaign to slander him, to lie about him. But that has worn year in, year out, it's worn thin. And that's why I'm confident. Come the general election, we will get more than 50% of the votes.
You think so?
We will wipe the Tories off the face of the map electorally. And we will therefore have the chance to begin the process, which I believe should start with nationalising the banks, take them into public ownership, make them instruments of public policy. Then we won't have to go begging for money. We use the banks as a source of money to fund development programs, education, healthcare, welfare, social services, raise the understanding in science, technology and the arts. A final point on this, on Speaker's Corner again. Just as this migration took place, first a tool of research, the internet, 1990s, then a tool of communication, then a mass tool of communication, then a drumming down, a level of stupidity, an isolation of interest groups. But then also at the simultaneous with that, we had things like TED Talk, where you go on there, you look up the subject matter, and you get a new in-depth insight into the subject, a new channel of ideas, a new channel of information. We are, as Bertolt Brecht said, children of the scientific age. Children of the scientific age. What does that mean? It means that where we see a problem, we are able to look for solutions. We have technical and scientific knowledge higher than any human beings 30, 40 or 50 years ago. All the instruments are at our disposal, intellectually, culturally and mechanically, to transform the entire planet and make it serve the needs of the people. That's the question. Not is science good, but what is science used for? That's the question we need to ask. And that question is a moral, cultural, social problem. And these social problems are combining together across the entire world. So we have a clash of cultures.
Encourage lateral thinking.
What used to be, for example, a gay rights platform in Hyde Park in the 1960s. The only people who saw it were people who came to Hyde Park. Now, someone defending gay rights can have their views spread around the entire planet, even amongst people who have never before come across this, or where gay rights mean death sentence. And therefore we have a combination, uneven development and combined development. Sometimes that means that the wealthy countries, the culturally advanced countries, at least in theory, they will go backwards. Thus, Donald Trump in America. At other times it will mean
Definitely.
Donald is great.
countries like
Donald is
China,
great.
He
Or
saved
like
the
India.
economy.
I'll come back in a
He
minute.
reduced unemployment.
My friend, how has he saved the
saved
economy?
America.
How has he saved the economy?
He saved the economy.
How?
He reduced unemployment.
My friend,
He increased output.
my friend,
He's the #1 success
he has
in the world.
got 4.4% growth rate now.
Exactly.
But that's lower
And it's
than
gonna
all
go- it's
previous
gonna go to
presidents
7.
achieved as their
It's not,
maximum.
that's a lie.
You said it's going to go
Obama
so.
had 1.
No, that's
not
not
even,
true. That's
or
not
0
true.
point
That's not true.
minus.
It's around 6%, I believe it was.
Nothing. Nonsense.
In any case,
Liar. Socialist liar.
the argument the
Look
gentleman
at
is making
Venezuela.
is
Hunger.
making.
Socialism is hunger.
The argument the gentleman is making is that Donald Trump has done marvellous. Well, that shows most of us have a different opinion, but you're welcome to your opinion.
I don't agree with everything Donald
You're
Trump
welcome
does,
to
just
your
to be
opinion,
clear.
my friend.
I just want to give a different opinion.
If you want a pig-headed, ignorant misogynist in power, good for you.
No.
You're welcome to do that. It's up to you.
Or a misandric.
If you want someone who
Or a
imprisons
socialist.
young children
Or
on
a
the border,
communist-
good
or
for
a
you.
communist dictator
Good for
in
you.
Venezuela,
Now,
which is causing
on the other
hunger.
side, one
A
sec.
communist dictator which is causing
Look,
hunger
look.
in Venezuela.
I
And
can
one
only
communist
Hey,
answer
hey, calm
one
down,
fool
calm
at a
down.
time,
Nicaragua,
and he's first.
in Venezuela, in Latin America.
Calm down.
Hunger. Or imprisoned autocrats. You're a liar. You're a fucking
I didn't
liar.
call him a misogynist. I
You're
said
a
Donald
fucking
Trump
liar.
is. I said Donald Trump is. It's pretty hard.
You're a
You'd be pretty
socialist
hard.
liar.
You'd be pretty hard pushed.
Shut up.
You'd be pretty hard pushed.
Socialist liar.
You would be pretty hard pushed. You would be pretty hard pushed to find anybody who thought Donald Trump wasn't a misogynist, apart from Donald Trump. I said you'd be pretty hard pushed. I didn't mean that it wasn't anybody.
Shut up.
Because of his actions and his arguments and his statements in relation to women. Sorry? I can't let you out.
Free speech.
I didn't get the first bit, atheism.
Where are you from?
Because we have this global combination of ideas. This means that the most backward ideas and the most advanced ideas are clashing around the world. The consequence of that is that in societies, particularly when the economy collapses, which is a crisis of the international capitalist system, low profit rates cause a collapse in investment. The investment crisis occurred before the financial crisis. Then the financial crisis crashed the system.
Where did you get
The
them
consequence of that is,
photos? They're awful.
what are you, a retard?
You are. Where did you recycle them?
From a second-hand
Yeah, you
charity
did.
shop.
I can
Have you
tell.
got a problem?
No, it's okay. You're just a bit fancy.
Well, he obviously does, because he thinks someone's
Oh, you got a
trousers
cross-dress
determine
suit?
the person. What's the matter with cross-dressing?
No, it's okay. I just asking.
Pakistanis dress in long
Fine
dresses.
with me.
Scottish people
Fine
wear
with-
skirts.
fine
What's the
with-
problem?
fine with-
I'm sure you've worn a towel around your stomach once in a while. The fact that you go on about that indicates you've probably got a psychological
trousers are a
problem
bit
with
funny.
your
I think
circumstances.
you got a psychological problem.
Believe me, I don't have any problem. I don't have any problem. You're the person who's got the problem with what I'm wearing. I didn't mention what you're wearing.
I was just giving you a compliment.
Well, it didn't sound like it, but never mind.
Find a woman, will you?
Never mind.
You're a lonely guy.
So that clash, and another example there of the clash of cultures. That clash of cultures means that in some places, particularly in economic difficulty, people retreat into themselves and blame the others. That's what's going on in Hyde Park at the moment, a lot of it. That's what the gentleman ears view just reflected. Now, that means that some people, they don't work on the basis of logic and argument, they work on the basis of interests. And therefore, if it's in their interests to support Donald Trump, that's why he said the economy's doing well. If he was doing badly, if he was doing economically badly, he wouldn't say,
Are trying to derail.
of course,
You're a liar.
my friend, Karl Marx explains,
Karl Marx
Karl Marx
is a
explains,
failure. He's a bloody
social
failure.
conditions determine consciousness. Your position in society shapes your consciousness and the parameters within which you can move. If you're born as a lower caste or the lowest caste in Bombay, the chances are you will be cleaning toilets for the rest of your life. And therefore the potential for you to develop, to understand, to gain power, to have consciousness, to gain education, science, art and culture is limited by the fact that you live in shit all day long, right? Now, on the other side, if you're born in a wealthy family in Kensington and Chelsea, in a 5-bedroom house in Holland Park, and you go to Eton, and you go to Oxford, the likelihood is you will get on in life, and you will probably be conservative with a small c, and you will have attitudes that correspond with your economic condition. And because you don't like to say, I'm privileged because my background was privileged, generally they will turn around and say, yes, but I did very well at Oxford. I did very well at Eton. And that's why I'm ahead. And therefore they'll think, if it wasn't them, maybe it was my genetics. Maybe my parents had good genes, and they had good genes. Maybe somewhere they worked along the line to get up, and I inherited that genetic disposition. In reality, the world is not like that. The genetics of one human being are almost exactly the same as the genetics of another. There is nothing on earth that will stop a lower caste person from Bombay who is born today, if they're taken to Holland Park tomorrow, raised in a middle class family, trained up to go to Eton and to Oxford, they will behave and act in the same way. They'll have the same degree. They'll have the same knowledge. Perhaps do better. There's nothing on earth that stops people, all of mankind, from being like Renaissance man, speaking 6, 7 languages by the time they're 5 or 6 years of age, knowing the classics, knowing science, knowing art, knowing culture, being able to wander from being a brain surgeon to being an artist, to being an actor, to being a technician. All the instruments at our disposal to learn these things and learn them quickly and spread them across the world. All these instruments are in our hands. Now they're in our hands. If you want to learn how to be a neurosurgeon, there it is. They are available, but the opportunities to use them are not available. My friend, how do you explain Renaissance man? Yes, where the children of the elite spoke 6, 7 languages, where they were all educated at an extremely high level by the time they were 10. How do you explain it? Right. How do you know? What you're superior to? How do you know? I didn't say exactly the same. I didn't say exactly the same.
It's not just nurture, it's also nature.
Well, you're the one who's shouting the same thing out 3 times. I am answering that with a level of sophistication, a level of sophistication that tries to go behind the superficiality that you have mentioned.
But why do you hear these?
Yes, if someone has motor neuron disease, it's much more difficult to become an astrophysicist. But we know it has happened, right? It has happened. And therefore, sorry? Not my own interest. I'm speaking, no I'm not. On the contrary, right from the origin, when we began this meeting, someone, let me say what I want to say. Let me answer your question. Don't say what I stand for. Let me say what I stand for. Say what you stand for. Right? No, you didn't. You said what you think I stand for. You said, I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in that. Not about you, but about me. Right? So you're imposing upon me what you think I think, rather than saying what you think. I want to hear what you think. What do you think? No, I'm not doing that. What do you think? I'm not doing that. Well, you're bastardising what I said. Better to say what you think. And then I say what I think.
You're a
And then it's
bastard.
goes. I don't discriminate against someone because they're wealthy.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, you do. You're anti-wealthy.
What are you kidding? You discriminate against the elite,
Yeah.
you discriminate against the bankers.
I discriminate.
Communist, socialist, communist,
I
liar.
point out.
Communist,
I point, you see here, another ignorant statement.
Why do I hear?
What I said was
Why are you
that
here?
social conditions determine consciousness.
No, they don't.
That means I said it. You've got another view. I've got my view. Now, you share 99% of your genes with a fruit fly, my friend. Looks like more than that in your case.
No, in your case, man.
How many genes do you have? Do you even know how many genes?
You've got 7. And they're not Levi's, they're Primark.
Yeah, Karl Marx told you, huh?
Any power because you don't have.
I told you now.
I got no jeans.
What I'm saying is, I said this earlier, I'll repeat it again. We, and I include you, and you, and you, just so you don't make any mistake, I'm discriminating against you, are children of the scientific age. We live in an era where science inculcates and penetrates our lives in a way that never before was possible. And knowledge of that science is widespread and accessible to all, or nearly all, on the planet. And if we restructured the way in which the tools by which we transform nature to serve the needs of the mind and the body, the tools, the instruments, the land, the buildings, the factories, the machineries, those instruments that are not in our hands, they're in the hands of the banks, they're in the hands of big businesses. We don't control them. So if you want to live, you have to sell your labour to someone else to live. And you live when you finish work, not when you're at work. And therefore the purpose of human activity, working on tools, made over millions of years of development. I was in the British Museum this morning.
The life of luxury.
They have the hand axe there. The hand axe there was working actually. I'm a tour guide. There's a hand axe there in the Enlightenment Gallery. I point to the hand axe and I say, this hand axe made of flint from Ethiopia, 2 million years old. You look in the History of the World in 100 Objects by the British Museum, a publication of theirs. Object number 3, the hand axe. Why? They describe it, they say, the hand axe was the passport to the world. Isn't it beautiful? This is how we conquered the world. We had a tool we developed 2 million years ago with which we could shape the external environment. And therefore we moved across the planet. And that numbskull at the beginning turned around and said, the foreigners this, the foreigners that. Who do you think you are? This man is derived from a man from Tanzania. He had a genetic mutation at some stage in his history, and his skin turned white, like mine did. Right?
So we came from the fishes. I'm not a fish.
Sorry?
We came from the fishes. I'm not a fish.
Before that, we came from the fish. You're no longer a fish, but if you look at an embryo, when it's first created inside the womb of a woman, there are enormous similarities to a fish.
So how come the fish?
This is what Darwin explained.
How come the fish is still there, the monkey, and we are here?
Oh, you're saying you don't believe in evolution, but
Ah,
that's
it's
your problem.
bullshit. Evolution
That's
is
your
bullshit.
problem. That's your problem, my
It's a
friend.
theory. It's not
Why
a
is it a
fact.
fish emperor?
My friend,
Can't
I am
prove
not
it.
about to discuss Darwin's theory of
Chickens and
evolution.
eggs.
I was
No,
discussing the
sure.
Marxist
But you're
theory
talking nonsense.
of tools and control and ownership of tools,
science is
deciding
debunked nonsense.
the fate of the planet.
We're here.
The
monkey
tool
is here, the
to get
fish is
somewhere to
here.
live in Britain
Nonsense.
is a key to a door. If you have the key to that building across the road there, next to the purple bus, that building has been empty since 1986. If you had the key, you would not be homeless. Your life would change and improve by having a 10-bedroom house in Park Lane. But instead of this,
That would be controlled by the secret police.
Yeah.
instead of this,
Nicolas
the
Maduro.
building is empty.
Nicolas Maduro would live
Now,
All
there.
it needs is an
And
axe.
you know where
Fact of the matter
you
is,
would be?
my
You
friend,
would be in the
my
ghetto.
friend, We are not in a numbskulls meeting.
abroad, my
The
friend.
meeting for that is just
Yeah,
over
my
there,
friend, and we can
30
talk.
metres
No,
away.
this is Speaker's Corner.
You can
We
go and
talk.
join them.
No, this is not a monologue, man.
My
You
friend,
want a
my
monologue.
friend, the
There's no
difference
monologue,
between,
my
you have to
friend.
understand,
There's no
the difference
monologue.
between free
I
speech,
understand.
the difference
You
between,
don't understand.
Stop it!
No, I don't.
Stop
the difference
I don't.
between, I know you're new here, but the difference between free speech and constant heckling is this. Free speech
We let you
means
talk far too much.
there must be a certain tolerance of the person speaking to allow them to speak. Otherwise, if you constantly interrupt someone when
No
they're
one does.
speaking,
You're the one with
that
the
is
biggest
not free
monologue in
speech.
Speaker's
That is the
Corner.
destruction of free speech. If 7
You're
people
a
were standing,
monologue.
the gentleman
You're
here thinks it's
monologuing.
perfectly right
You
to do
like
what he's
to
doing.
monologue,
What
and
have you
it's a
done?
free
You've said
exercise.
monologue
It's a
30
free-
times
it's
in
a
2
free
minutes.
monologue for you.
Right, there you
It's
go.
a free exercise
I've
for
been
you.
practicing a monologue
For years.
using many different
For years,
words.
right?
You've been
That's what
saying
you do.
monologue
That's what
30
you do.
times.
Yeah, but that's what you do. You have a monologue.
No, that's not
You don't
what I
let
do.
anyone talk.
I speak and express ideas. I've been doing it for 32 years. You come right next to the speaker and interrupt them with zero contribution to the intellect.
And you haven't got any answers.
That, you see, is the distinction between free speech and the destruction of free speech.
You want to take away the
No, when he's doing it, he is not making a speech or expressing a view. He is merely trying to prevent me from expressing my view. There is a distinction. My friend, Karl Marx called his theory scientific socialism. And I agree with that. How is it disproved?
Okay, very simple. In Marx's Capital, in Volume 6, he says the rich will get richer and collapse and the poor will not. That was debunked.
Volume 6.
He made Volume 6.
Well, hang on, hang on. What volume was it?
He made a moral claim and he made a social claim.
What did he say?
The moral claim was people will treat each other better under socialism and communism. After 1956 and the collapse of communism, we know that was false. He made an
What was the-
economic
what was the-
claim
what was the
that
first
the
point
rich
you
will
were
get
making?
rich, poor and the poor will get, no they didn't. The rich got richer, the poor got richer. Both his claims are false.
Well, in
So
fact,
you have to either be a Marxist or a
I'll try.
scientist. Are
Let
you
me
a
answer
scientist or
your
Marxist?
point of view. Firstly, a study was carried out.
Doesn't exist.
A study was carried out by Oxfam.
take over our country.
I'm sorry, I didn't realise I had to give something to you. I thought the gentleman here had said something, and I was supposed to reply to him. I didn't realise it was your turn. Now, Marx described a world in which the wealthiest sections of the population increased their wealth to a point where their wealth and power turns into monopoly power. Now, today's world, there are 8 people, according to Oxfam, who own more wealth than half of the world's
That's
population.
not the claim I'm saying he made.
Half of the world's population.
You're arguing against
I'm
another
trying to
claim.
answer you.
Yeah, but that's not the claim
In
I
case
made.
you didn't notice, I'm answering you.
Okay, right, I'll wait.
Half of the world's population earn less than $2 a day. At the time when Marx was alive, there was still slavery in the United States of America.
Yeah, Marx himself.
There are now more slaves in the world today than there were at the time when Marx was alive. More slaves,
There's nothing
real
to dispute-
slaves.
There's nothing to dispute
Now-
that the poor are richer today. Ever. Every economic theory
Richer in
does.
what respect?
The poor are wealthier on a per capita
My friend,
basis.
in
since
1820,
1858.
in
No,
1820,
but that's a communist country.
Exactly.
in 1820,
I'm gonna get have a camera guy to replace it and carry on.
I'm finishing soon. In 1820, India was more wealthy than Britain. In 1820, China was more wealthy than Britain. Both of those countries.
It would take me 2
As
minutes
a
to show you the
consequence,
OECD data
as a,
that's false.
well, it's there's a study carried out by a man by the name of Madison. Madison made the decisive studies on this question, and then there was a second series of studies carried out by a man by the name of Pomerantz. Were wealthier than Britain, but as a consequence of British imperialism, won Britain's wars against China, forcing the Chinese to take opium in the 1830s and the 1850s. The 2 opium wars. Bombed the Chinese, forced them to open their doors, sold them opium, forced them to take opium. In India, conquered India, oppressed the people, murdered them. There are pictures from the 1920s. in the history of Britain books, photographic books, and you will see in there pictures of Indians in the British Raj strung up on crucifixes in the sun to die.
And what about the pictures of
the British Empire?
Indians being educated, railroads, food, sanitation, all the things the British Empire gave India.
My friend,
What about
there
the great
was
benefits of the empire?
some infrastructure. There was some infrastructure provided by the British,
The largest railway network
but
in the world.
nevertheless, India declined from 1820 onwards, and it has remained backwards compared with Britain, or France, or Germany, or America. When those countries rose, India fell. Furthermore, the same with China. 1820, China was wealthier than Britain. And yet, when the British bombed, when the imperialists intervened, then China was thrown backwards.
Well, you know what Mao did to
And
China?
only in the 1970s did they begin to recapture their position. And therefore the idea that Marx's theory was wrong about the impoverishment of the masses is incorrect. However, at no stage, to contradict what you said, at no stage did Marx say that there would be an absolute fall in the elite. He asked about Marx. Right? Sorry.
Didn't hear it.
I've forgiven myself.
Try staying on the ball, my friend. Try staying on the ball. Rather than what you're doing.
Your people died.
You come to this meeting regularly. But rather than actually listen to the debate, what you do is you hope that somebody attacks me and jump on the bandwagon and nod with them.
Oh, really?
Rather than following the debate. Yes, I notice you.
Oh, sorry
It's
to
a problem.
disappoint, but I don't need to wait for anybody to attack you. Please tell us about Mao Zedong and what he did to China. You speak about the British Empire. Speak about your beloved socialists. I don't need anybody to attack you, really. It's way too easy.
In a minute.
How many
Of course, I'll wait.
socialism in the world?
But don't tell me I'm waiting for
What about
somebody else
Marx
to attack
suppressing his own housemaid, fathering a child, and not acknowledging his child, not giving him a penny?
I've written an academic paper on this.
It's not him about his child. And you should follow him, right? You might as well follow Muhammad.
Change the world.
For better.
Firstly, I
Your
believe
Shannon is where it happens.
a sense of collectivity and
Not a
empowerment.
left-wing person.
That means revolutionary change begins on the one side in mass phenomena, on the other side in individual phenomena.
But the revolution has not happened. You're still waiting.
The gentleman's asking you a question, I'm trying to answer you.
Yes, please.
No,
A
let
century
him.
and a half, they're still
Yeah,
waiting
let
for
him answer. Let him
My
answer.
opinion, people discover the need to act as a collective, as a consequence of their own experience in trying to fight for some justice or against some injustice that happened to them or their family or their friends or their loved ones. And when that happens, people clash against the authorities. Could be the local councils, could be the police, it could be the judiciary, it could be politicians. And when they do that and they clash with them, suddenly they discover
Fear the pale devil.
maybe the stories I'm seeing in the press are not true. Maybe we're being conned and tricked a lot of the time. Maybe what I see happen to somebody else is the same thing happened to me. And the sense of collectivity emerges, a consciousness of change that begins with an individual and spreads outwards from them. Speaker's Corner over the years has had many shifts and changes. While I've been speaking here, I've seen people come and go, people born and die.
The nationalists are here now.
And I observe the nationalists are here now. However, I've also observed the far right who started coming up when I first started here in Speaker's Corner. We had a group of far right hecklers. They were good. I mean, they were really good. Not like this sort of ragtag and bolt. They were really good. They knew like 30 jokes to take down a speaker. Then you had to make the audience turn against the speaker. Then you had to make them laugh against the speaker. So you spoke something, they made a joke one time, you feel that small. And it shows you go red in the face. But you carry on.
But you're a very skilled orator. I've noticed that doesn't happen to
32
you.
years, my friend.
Well, is that what makes a good
However,
speaker, telling jokes?
saying jokes about the other person. Is that what makes a good speaker to you?
I
To
said
just
these
diminish the other
These
person?
are hecklers, I said.
Hecklers.
You don't listen, told you, you don't listen.
No, I heard
don't
you
listen.
calling them hecklers, but you said they were really, really good.
They were good.
So we are bad hecklers and they're good
You're a
hecklers.
hopeless heckler, you're not a serious heckler.
Well, thank you very much, because I'm not a heckler. I'm a speaker just like you. Am I? What makes me a heckler? And what makes me a heckler?
You're Heckler the Impaler.
Well, I'm sorry. This is your property, sir. I'm very sorry.
Private property.
Private property. Yeah, it's capitalism, man. False communist. False communist.
I've observed people who are passive.
Exactly. We will never talk about
I've observed people who are
We will
active
never
become
talk about
passive. The dynamics of change are happening in Britain in a way faster than many people expect. I remember years ago. I remember years ago. Well, 3 years ago to be precise, when Jeremy Corbyn first stood, everyone thought I was a nutcase for supporting it. Now, every day, Jeremy Corbyn's in the news, and people expect him to be the next. Even the Financial Times,
He's
the
never
Guardian,
going to be the Prime Minister.
the Guardian,
I'm going
and
to
the Times
assassinate him if he
newspaper,
ever
and the
becomes
Telegraph,
Prime Minister.
and now expecting him to be the Prime
Some
Minister.
bullshit going on
So
again.
times change.
God help us
Movements
all.
change. Consciousness
Show
change.
me, I'm going to put a bullet
And
in
the
this.
organisation and combination of people changes. I am hopeful that we are on the cusp in Britain of serious progressive change. However, I also realise that there are reactionary fools circling around, desperate to express and to reveal their own ignorance. But nevertheless, when they're actually confronted by others, collectivity changes their consciousness.
And then
So I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of these this far right wave at Speaker's Corner. Bring it on. Bring it on.
Well, we're
Yeah,
right
because
here.
there's like one or two of them every time.
Good. That's why I'm not discouraging you from being here.
So actually, I do admire the fact of the three epistemological strains of Marxism, at least he's one on the broadest waiting for the revolution.
Yes.
So the masses aren't going to revolt, mate. It's too
Commercial
late. 150 years.
Yeah, la
Wealth redistribution
l'évolution.
between rich and poor
La
people
l'évolution.
is not really the big issue. Wealth redistribution in terms of the organisation of productive power. So we use the corporate power.
I like
take
the word
that
power.
into public
I like
ownership.
that word.
Use that for the benefit of the people. That's how I see the redistribution.
Power
of
to the
wealth.
people, but who are the
I'm not
people?
I'm
Yeah.
speaking here for
If
quite a
you
long
give
time.
power to the people, you give
you.
power
Thanks
to
very
the
much
ones who
for
represent
joining in the
people,
meeting.
who will be the
See you
next
again
ones in
next week.
power.
Come take over everything from your humanity.
Come, man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to ITV. Listen.
A new generation.
Guiding